Hey everybody, just getting set up here. Give me a moment. All right. Here we go. I think this is good. Let me see everything. Yeah. Let's see a lot of, that's a bit better. Don't really need to look at the ceiling. Hi, and welcome to the McLuhan Institute Live, number 4. I've done this 4 weeks in a row now, and it's fun for me anyway. Nice to have some company. Haha. There's 0 people tuning in right now, but that's okay. They're all archived. I'm spending about 15 minutes letting you all see my process as I document and inventory and explore the library of my late father, Eric McLuhan. And I'm happy you could join me. So, week 4, I already got a start here, and I already did this book, but I wanted to show it to you because it's a little important in understanding McLuhan stuff. The book is Experiences in Groups and Other Papers by W.R. Bion, Routledge, 1994. Here on the title page, Eric has made a notation. Experiences in groups equals closed crowds. And for people familiar with the McLuhan world, that is a reference to a gentleman by the name of Elias Canetti, who wrote a book called Crowds in Power. And Crowds in Power is an important text. If I ever get around to writing, a required reading list for McLuhan studies, Elias Canetti is... Oh, somebody's there. Oh, thank you, Oswald Spengler. As I was saying, Elias Canetti and his book Crowds in Power is a very important book for McLuhan studies. It's a study of the behavior of people in different kinds of groups. And it has its limits because it only takes us up to, the late 60s, 1960s. And Marshall and my father identified different crowds since we have new technologies like the internet, the mass audience, different behaviors. Anyway, so that notation, closed crowds, is a direct reference to Canetti, who talked about open crowds and closed crowds. The book is always also useful because there are several pages where Eric makes the note F/G, standing for figure and ground. And each instance where that is noted is helpful because he's also underlined in pencil. And so the more examples we have of things like that, the more we can understand what that annotation is a reference to. And that helps myself and other people doing this kind of, archaeological work in trying to decipher some of this stuff. I have a pretty good handle on figure and ground, so, but I'm always learning new things, so that's a help. And I've made notes. The first time when I did this for Marshall's library about 10 years ago, I didn't make much record of the different types of annotation, and I kind of wish I had, because now it's a pain in the butt. If I want to look it up, I have to go all the way to Toronto to consult his library. So this time around, I'm taking an extra minute and making a note of figure and ground in this book on these pages if I go that far, so that if this library ends up somewhere else, I'll be able to get more information without having to travel to the library, and that's helpful. So this is a helpful book for those reasons. There are a fair amount of annotations in the back. And there's also this curious thing. I put up a photo of it on my Instagram, the McLuhan Institute Instagram. if you want to have a look at that. And it's a curious tetrad. Keep in mind a tetrad is any group of four things. People familiar with McLuhan will reference that to laws of media and the four laws of media being enhance, obsolesce, reverse, and retrieve, which make up this analytic tetrad. This is a different thing altogether. This is a reference to a work, 5-book series that my father Eric did with a friend of his, a mime by the name of Wayne Constantino, a longtime friend. They developed this thing called the human equation, which is kind of book 3 of Understanding Media, Laws of Media, Human Equation. And I frankly don't know that much about it because I haven't spent a lot of time with it, although I need to. And this is another reason I'm saying I need to do that. Anyway, here's where I am. Welcome, and let's keep going. I think there are some exciting things coming up here. Exciting being a relative term. Next we have Mindware and Introduction to the Philosophy of Cognitive Science. So if you haven't seen this before, what I'm doing is I'm going through this whole library of 6,000 or so books, and I'm making an accounting of it, pardon me, fueled by decaf coffee, because I'm getting old and I need to sleep later. So I'm making a note of the basic bibliographic data, the title, Mindware, an introduction to the philosophy of cognitive science. The author is Andy Clark. It is a paperback. It is in good condition. I already know this is going to be fun because the cover, you know, my dad and Marshall, for that matter, were obsessed with ambiguity, with puns of various kinds. The cover features a visual pun. So I have a feeling there's going to be some fun in here. Andy Clark, University of Sussex, New York, Oxford University Press, 2001, New York, Oxford University Press, 2001. My next part on my spreadsheet here is reserved for whether there's a name in the book, and there isn't a name in here. Often Dad, continuing Marshall's tradition, would put his name and where he purchased the book in the year, but he hasn't done that here, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. And I'm just going to scan through. Okay. There are a lot of annotations. Now this is weird because we've got red pencil here, and I'm not sure this is actually Dad. It'd be unusual, but it looks like his writing. And there is a lot of writing, but it doesn't look like Dad's. That's kind of weird. Aspects of AI. Yeah, so there are a lot of notes in here that are not Dad's, which is kind of weird. I'm looking for anything that does look like him. It's unusual that he has a book that's full of somebody else's annotations or underlinings, which is what's happening here. Well, that's weird. I don't really see anything that really screams of dad. Sorry, this is not the most exciting stuff, but it's an oddity. And there's nobody's name in it. I almost think like he borrowed this from somebody. If this is your book and you want it back, let me know, okay? We can talk about that. Yeah, no, there's nothing in it, which is unusual and sometimes says something. You can sometimes tell something about the value of a book in Marshall or Eric's library by the absence of annotation. They didn't generally hold on to books for no reason. So that's weird. Here's a good one. The Economy of Cities, Jane Jacobs. A nice addition. Oh, see, now this is nice. Okay, getting ahead of ourselves. So shelf 3E, the Economy of Cities, Jane Jacobs. Hardcover, good condition. Well, this is a treat, I'm going to tell you. You'll be glad you tuned into this one, New York Random House. And published in 1969, first printing. Well, that's nice. Now, here we do have a name in the book. In fact, we have two names in the book. We have three names in the book. This is kind of fun. So, at the top, H.M. McLuhan. That's Marshall's signature there. Below it is an old signature of Dad's, T for Thomas, Eric McLuhan. May 8th, 1969. And below that, it says, Greetings to Eric from Jane Jacobs, August 1969. Well, isn't that special? And we have a piece of paper here, which is unusual and interesting. This is Marshall's. At the top it says W. Lewis, Lion and Fox, Wyndham Lewis, the Lion and the Fox. And these are notes of Marshall's, presumably to do with Lion and the Fox. I'm going to have to look into this because why is that here? At the top it says executive is dropout. Involuntary executive. Okay, so Shax, Troke, Pirots, I don't know what that says, as involuntary executive dropouts, displaced, angry men. Cop today, center without center margin by image. Job not center without margin, role player. Well, this is a really cool book. A signed first edition from Jane Jacobs to Eric McLuhan with Marshall's name in it, but definitely Dad's copy. Here on the title page, we have an annotation from Marshall. I guess that's backwards. Figure out how to fix that. The annotation, it's The Economy of Cities, and Marshall is written in pencil, classical paradox. Something to chew on. So again, I'm getting ahead of myself because I want to make note that this is the first time I've seen a book signed by three people all having to do with the same thing. So it says H.M. McLuhan. It also says T. Eric McLuhan, May 8/69. So that's cool. And then, quote, greetings to Eric from Jane Jacobs. August 1969. So Dad had a little fanboy moment where Dad got this book May 8th, 1969. A couple months later, June, July, August, he got Jane Jacobs to sign it for him. Isn't that nice? I think that's nice. So let's see what the book meant. We have that annotation classical paradox. This is one of those times where I wish I could spend an hour in this book. No, more than an hour. I'd love to read this book cover to cover. Who's got time for that? I don't right now. So we seem to have some of Marshall's marks in here, little check marks, some underlining, some notes, C/M, center margin, this is a bit of a thing. Does this belong in Marshall's library? Does it belong in Eric's library? I mean, it's Eric's book. He used it. It belongs in his library as far as I'm concerned. Maybe Marshall gave it to him. I don't know. Here's a typical thing. Here's a folded up newspaper. I'm using a stack of Post-it notes to mark my page there. Marshall's writing NY Times Magazine, May 23rd, 1969. And I can tell you what this is going to be. It's going to be a review or something of the book. That's generally what it is. There we go. Being as careful as I can, obviously. Jane Jacobs, Against Urban Renewal for Urban Life. Oh. There she is. Now, I'll have you know, I didn't cherry pick these books. I'm just going along the shelf. So, what in the sweet Lord is that? Oh, that. It's a hairstyle. May 25th, 1969. Marshall, 25th. Oh, that is. See, that's a 5, not a 3. My bad. Anyway, we have some pages here from the New York Times. It's fragile, so I don't want to disturb it too much. I'm just checking. Anyway, again, I don't want to disturb it. I can look at it later, maybe, or maybe not. It was Marshall's habit. He read the New York Times, the Sunday edition anyway, especially for the literary supplement. And when there was a review of a book that he owned, he would pull it and place it in the book. Or in this case, where I'm not sure if it's exactly a review, but it's at least an interview. It's probably somewhat of a review of the book or having to do with it, press on it. And there is a Kleenex or toilet paper bookmark here in explosive city growth. Marking an annotation. I don't know if this will show up. Yeah. You can see it's C/M versus C-M, and that's center margin versus center without margin. These are terms from economics, which are a frequent annotation of Marshall's and Eric's. Yeah, it looks like Marshall marked up this book quite a bit, but it's Dad's book. Yeah, so now we get to the back. Marshall and Eric's annotation style is that they would make a note on the end papers referencing a page number, and then you flip to the page number, and that's where you'll see an underlined passage or something. And here we have a fair bit of annotation. And sorry, I'm just trying to see how much is Marshall's and how much is Dad's. And it's all Marshall. So that's cool. And it runs the whole gamut of the book. There's some cool stuff here. Stuff about obsidian, center margin, value of obsidian. Here's a Finnegan's Wake reference. 32 HCE. I am not a Finnegan's Wake expert by any means. I've got a lot of work to do in Finnegan's Wake, but I could recognize a recurring theme when I see it, and HCE is one of them. That refers to a character from Finnegan's Wake, Humphrey Chimpton Earwicker. Here comes everybody. So it says 32 HCE. You flip to page 32. And sure enough, there's the annotation. And because I don't know enough about it, I can't tell you what the reference means to it all. Anyway, like I said, I'd love to spend a lot of time here reading this book. Well, there's a cool one. Okay, we'll do one more. '77 or '79 IBM Origin. 77. Let's see what that's about while we're here. There's nothing more written about it, just a note here. Robert Lekachman, probably pronouncing that wrong, my apologies, has drawn to my attention the interesting case of international business machines. The initial growth of IBM was typical. While it was still small, it bought the rights to an invention, the electric typewriter, which had been turned down by the large typewriter manufacturers, and the company grew with growth and volume of its new work. But after the company had already grown very large, it added the 360 computer, and this was not simply the addition of another machine to its line of products. IBM had to change radically to offer analysis, programming, and training services to its computer customers and to establish computer centers where, in effect, it rented time, equipment, and personnel to clients. Blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of cool. He made a note of that. Well, this is fun. Last one. Chapter 3, page 85. Wonder if there's a heading here. And there is, yeah. The chapter is the valuable inefficiencies and impracticalities of cities, and Marshall's note is disservice, ENV, environment. One of Marshall's definitions of media is an environment of services and disservices. And this is a note of this chapter being about the disservice, the environment of disservices. or, the negative, quote unquote, effects of technologies. Anyway, that's a really cool book. And, shoot, so I have to make note that there are many annotations, mostly Marshall's. On center margin, center without margin, etc. Important book. And moving on. Where are we at time? Oh my gosh, there are 5 people watching. Hi, 5 people, and we're at 25 minutes. So I'm gonna cut it off there, which is too bad. You see how this can take up a lot of time? Clinton, yeah. We have M.W. Steinberg, Aspects of Modern Drama. There are a lot of inclusions here, including some typewritten pages, handwritten pages of notes of Marshall's, followed by Swift Viewing the Popular Life of Subliminal Influence by Charles C. Ackland. Anyway, this one by Steinberg looks pretty interesting. Aspects of Modern Drama. Maxwell Anderson, John Galsworthy, Arthur Miller, Eugene O'Neill, William Saroyan, George Bernard Shaw, Oscar Wilde, Tennessee Williams, W.B. Yeats. You can imagine that's going to be meaty. So thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your support of my work through patreon.com/McLuhan. And join me next week, Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, for more